It's become the new front line in the global war against terror. Groups linked to the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda are becoming more powerful in Africa. In the past year alone, these groups have killed more than 22,000 people, and their ranks have expanded rapidly. It's not just because of guns or fear. These groups have weaponized technology. They're using Starlink, they're using satellite internet, drones, and even platforms like TikTok.
Brothers and sisters of Africa, welcome once again to Voice of Africa, the channel where the stories of our continent are told with clarity, strength, and respect for the truth. Before we begin, please take a moment to like this video so YouTube recommends it to more people, and consider supporting us with super thanks. Your engagement keeps this voice alive. Africa today stands at a crossroads. Our continent, home to over 1.4 billion people, vibrant cultures, and immense resources, has also become the center of a shadow war that affects millions of lives. This is not the kind of conflict we saw in the past. It is not just ambushes in the bush or raids on isolated villages. Today's war is powered by technology. Extremist groups have adapted to the 21st century, using drones, satellite internet, and social media to expand their reach and sharpen their violence. For decades, the Middle East was seen as the global hub of extremist movements, but in recent years, the epicenter has shifted south. Reports from the United Nations and African security institutions confirm that Africa now accounts for the majority of global terrorism deaths. The Sahel region alone has overtaken other regions as the deadliest hotspot for terrorism worldwide. From Nigeria and Burkina Faso to Mali, Niger, Somalia, Mozambique, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, extremist groups are not only present, they are thriving, evolving, and spreading fear. The new tools of war are at the heart of this change. Drones once reserved for powerful militaries are now in the hands of insurgents. Cheap, commercially available devices are modified to scout military positions, guide ambushes, and even drop explosives. In Nigeria's northeast, fighters linked to the Islamic State West Africa Province, or ISWAP, have already used drones to spy on bases and strike soldiers. What was once unimaginable a few years ago is now becoming routine. Satellite internet is another factor changing the battlefield. Portable Starlink terminals, small enough to be carried in a backpack, have been seized from extremist hideouts in Nigeria and the Sahel. With these devices, militants can coordinate across deserts and forests where traditional communication fails. They can live stream propaganda, upload videos in real time, and manage operations as though they were running from an office in a major city. For governments with limited resources, this represents an enormous challenge. Social media adds another layer. Platforms built for entertainment and communication are being weaponized by extremist groups. They post polished videos with background music, subtitles, and sharp editing. Sometimes they even use AI tools to refine their content. The result is propaganda that spreads instantly, reaching vulnerable young people and building a global audience. Extremist groups no longer rely on leaflets or word of mouth. They recruit with a viral clip and a single swipe. The human impact is clearest in Nigeria's northeast. For 15 years, Borno State has lived under the shadow of Boko Haram and ISWAP. Entire villages have been uprooted, and tens of thousands of lives have been lost. By 2021, the United Nations estimated that more than 35,000 people had already been killed, and since then the numbers have only risen. In March 2025, ISWAP planted a bomb under a commercial vehicle, killing 4 people and injuring 4 others. The following month, they attacked a Nigerian army barracks, claiming the lives of 3 soldiers. By May, they launched one of their most sophisticated assaults, overrunning the town of Marte, capturing soldiers, and securing vital smuggling routes near Lake Chad. Marte matters because it connects to lifelines of weapons, money, and fighters. By holding this town, insurgents gained not just territory, but access to the economic arteries that keep their war alive. This adaptability makes them dangerous. Nigerian forces created fortified super camps to respond quickly to insurgent attacks. But ISWAP studied the strategy and struck where soldiers were weakest, on bridges, in convoys, and during nighttime raids. It has become a deadly chess match, with insurgents learning and adjusting faster than many expected. Across the Sahel, the same story unfolds. In Mali, fighters from Jama'at Nusrat al-Islam wal Muslimin, known as JNIM, recently disrupted fuel convoys traveling from Senegal into Mali. Dozens of trucks were stranded or destroyed near quays, raising fears of shortages in Bamako. By choking supply lines, extremists hurt entire economies, not just military outposts. In Niger and Burkina Faso, raids on army bases reveal militants armed not only with rifles, but also with modern communication tools, motorbike units, and drones. Portable satellite terminals have been seized in Tillaberi, confirming that these groups are as networked as they are violent. Further south, Mozambique's Cabo Delgado province has endured years of bloodshed from extremists pledging allegiance to the Islamic State. In 2021, attacks near Palma halted a $20 billion natural gas project that could transform the country's economy. Regional military deployments have since improved security in some districts, and by 2024 and 2025 discussions began on restarting the project. But fresh attacks in villages show the fragility of these gains. As long as insecurity persists, the promise of prosperity remains out of reach. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Allied Democratic Forces, or ADF, now linked to ISIS, have continued their reign of terror. In September 2025, 2 massacres killed at least 89 people, including one attack during a funeral. When extremists strike at moments of grief, they aim not only to kill, but to break the will of entire communities. In these places, families live in constant fear that even mourning the dead may bring more violence. The scale of the crisis is staggering. Independent security monitors report that militant Islamist violence killed over 22,000 people in Africa last year. The Sahel alone accounted for nearly half of global terrorism deaths in 2024. And these numbers are not abstract. Behind every statistic is a farmer, a mother, a child, or a student whose life was cut short. The financial networks behind these groups are also powerful. ISWAP, for example, is estimated to generate over $200 million a year through extortion, illegal taxation, and control of local economies. In Borno State, farmers are forced to pay fees per hectare just to work their land. For many communities, militants act like shadow governments, taxing trade, regulating movement, and embedding themselves deeply into local life. To truly understand why this crisis has spread, we must look at the roots. Poverty, unemployment, inequality, and corruption create fertile ground for extremism. Young people with no jobs, no education, and no opportunities become easy prey. Extremist groups exploit this despair, offering food, money, or even a sense of belonging. They marry into communities, blur the line between civilian and fighter, and weave themselves into the social fabric. Compare this with stronger economies in Africa, such as Rwanda or South Africa, where extremist violence is less pervasive. The difference is clear. Where poverty is deep and governance weak, extremism thrives. The solutions must therefore go beyond the battlefield. Military force is necessary, but it cannot be the only response. Governments must create jobs, build schools, and strengthen institutions. Youth employment programs tied to public works can provide immediate income while building infrastructure. Regional cooperation is also vital. Borders mean little to motorcycle brigades moving under the cover of night, so neighboring nations must share intelligence and coordinate patrols. The alliance of Sahel states, uniting Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, is one example of how countries can pool resources and present a united front. Technology itself can be part of the solution. Drones used for attacks can also be used to monitor farmland, track illegal logging, and guard borders. Satellite internet that militants misuse can also connect remote schools and clinics. The challenge is to regulate these tools smartly, preventing abuse while encouraging development. Community voices matter as well. Extremist propaganda spreads fast, but local radio, faith leaders, and youth activists can counter with credible messages rooted in culture and trust. A young man is less likely to believe a slick extremist video if his own teacher, imam, or neighbor explains the truth in his own language. Building this kind of resilience is as important as building walls or buying weapons. Accountability and governance remain essential. Corruption drains resources meant for security and development, and when people see governments failing to deliver, they lose trust. Transparent institutions that provide services, pay soldiers on time, and support farmers can weaken extremist influence. The fight is not just about firepower, it is about trust between governments and their people. Despite the challenges, there is hope. In Mozambique, security improvements have allowed displaced people to begin returning, and talks of restarting the LNG project show how stability can bring investment. In Nigeria, community vigilance groups working with security forces have allowed farmers to return to their land in some areas. In the Sahel, citizens use WhatsApp groups to warn each other of suspicious movements, saving lives through simple cooperation. These small victories show that progress is possible, yet the losses remain heavy. In Congo, families mourn those killed at funerals. In Mali, traders wonder when fuel will flow again. In Nigeria, parents listen for drones overhead and pray for a quiet night. Every statistic we cite represents shattered lives and dreams. Africa cannot afford to remain a battlefield. Our future must not be defined by fear, but by growth and innovation. We are a continent of possibilities, of youth bursting with energy, of resources waiting to be developed, of cultures rich in resilience. The extremists want Africa weak and divided. We must make Africa strong and united. So the question remains, can we defeat both poverty and terrorism at the same time? Can we harness technology not for destruction, but for development? Can we build economies that provide jobs and dignity so that young people no longer see violence as their only option? The answer must be yes. It will take courage, cooperation, and commitment. But Africa has shown time and again that it can rise to meet any challenge. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this video powerful, please like, share, and subscribe to Voice of Africa. Your support helps us continue bringing these untold stories to the world. Together we can ensure that Africa's story is not written by fear, but by hope, unity, and progress.